The unemployment report Friday showed September was the fourth month in a row that the economy lost jobs. The U.S. Treasury Secretary and finance ministers from around the world met in Washington this weekend to try to find a way to get the global economy moving again. The United States is very worried that if Europe cuts government spending too much, it could severely hurt economic growth right here. So earlier, I spoke with the French finance minister, Christine Lagarde, a proponent of European austerity, about whether growth is at risk. Minister Christine Lagarde, thank you so much for joining us. There seems to be tension between the United States and Europe over what's the most sensible way to deal with the current lack of growth. The US wants Europe to continue pushing money into the system. Europe is talking about a lot of austerity.
In terms of growth versus austerity, it's a policy that we've adopted in pretty much all European countries, that we need to address both issues. If we do not reduce the public deficit, it's not going to be conducive to growth. Why is that? Because people worry about public deficit. If they worry about it, they begin to save. If they save too much, they don't consume. If they don't consume, unemployment goes up and production goes down. So we need to attack that circle from the deficit.
But you called it a circle, and there is a circular argument about it, because in fact many economists, particularly American economists, are saying that Europe
Some of them.
Many of the prominent ones are saying that Europe is in fact going around it the wrong way, that in fact it needs more stimulus to provide more growth and then to attack deficits from a position of strength. Why won't Europe do that?
Because if I look at my numbers, which is better than theories and speculations. If I look at my numbers, we've stimulated the French economy massively in the year 2009, end of 2008, 2009. And my numbers are now going up. I've got growth up 1.6% from negative 2.6. I've got unemployment down from 9.6 down to 9.3. And I've got deficit down as well from 8.2, where we thought it would be, down to 7.7. So numbers are good. Unemployment is going down. Why would I inject more public money into the system when private investment is picking up?
And there are tens of millions of people out of work all over the world right now. They seem to be having to pay for the excesses of the bankers, the billionaires, the speculators. How can you have fiscal discipline and make it fair?
We make it fair by two ways. Number one, we have a volume of shock absorbers, if you wish, that help the least privileged and the poorest in the country, where unemployment benefits, welfare, and so on and so forth actually help them go through difficult times. And that has worked well in 2009. We continue to sustain and support those programs because it's needed. The second thing that we did, and that was decided in Sweden, in the UK, in Germany, and in France, we're going to impose a systemic tax on banks, for instance. Our banks had to borrow from the state. They have refunded most of them, and the state, which means our taxpayers, have made a profit in the process.
There is a new film that's coming out this weekend here in the United States called Inside Job. You were interviewed for that film, and you were asked about the collapse of Lehman Brothers.
When were you first told that Lehman, in fact, was going to go bankrupt?
After the fact.
After the fact? Wow, okay. And what was your reaction when you learned of it?
Holy cow.
So let me ask you, what is there to prevent another holy cow moment? Do you believe that the right kind of regulation against this potential disaster is in place across the board now?
I should hope so.
But is it?
We've been working really hard in the last 2 months to put in place what our leaders decided was needed. An alert control system, a supervisory system, discipline in the markets. But it's a constant job because markets are very agile and they reinvent new schemes, they invent new channels, new circuits. So we need to be careful for the whole public, not just for Wall Street, not just for the city, not just for the stock markets. We need to protect individuals.
You talked about markets. To quote Joseph Stiglitz, apparently he says that trying to appease the markets is like trying to reason with a crazy man. Do you think you're trying to appease markets in a way that actually won't protect the public interest?
Well, you talk about the crazy man. We don't necessarily want to put an actual straitjacket on everything that they do, but we need to put them under supervision, and we need to set rules and regulations that if they violate such rules and regulations, they are really hammered, and that's what's needed.
Let me ask you about one of the things your own government is trying to do, and that's raise the retirement age from 60 to 62.
And 65 to 67.
Is that going to happen?
Threshold. Yes, of course.
In France and across Europe, there have been huge political pressure because of the protests by so many people converging. Can France withstand that political pressure, the protests?
We have to, in the interest of the next generations. It's a demographic issue that we have to deal with. It's an economic challenge, and we can't answer that by reducing pensions. We can't abandon the system as we have it at the moment. So the only way to fix it and to make sure that it's financially stable and sustainable is to increase the retirement age by 2 years, only 2 years. And in the last 50 years, people have gained 15 years of longevity.
I want to ask you about being a woman finance minister. You were a former CEO. Do you think women have a different way of approaching business or approaching the public sphere?
Yes.
In what way?
I think we inject less libido, less testosterone.
Less libido?
Yes, and less testosterone into the equation.
And how does that help?
It helps in the sense that we don't necessarily project our whole egos into cutting a deal, making our point across, convincing people, reducing them to a partner that has lost in the process. It's probably overgeneralized what I'm saying, and I'm sure that there are women that operate exactly like men. But in the main, and having had nearly 30 years of professional life, a bit more than that actually, and getting closer to 60 than 50, I honestly believe that there is a majority of women in such positions that approach power, decision-making processes, and other people in the business relationship in a slightly different manner.
On that note, Minister Lagarde, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.